Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Almeida here. I'm doing this live to tell you a little bit about my content, share some news, keeping really without a script, without any rules. I just want to keep it human as much as possible because I think, at least this is my feeling, is when we read something that has been so worked out and it has this perfection of text, it becomes unnatural. And that's why I don't like to have a script for my lives or for my video content in general. So, what do I want to tell you today? Basically, what I'm doing with regulatory intelligence and what I'm posting out there. I work with regulations in Europe, clean tech, and biotech. So, my clients are companies that they want to have a consultant that look at market problems with them and at European environmental regulations and say, okay, where should we go? What should we do? This is what I do for them. And of course, there's a compliance side, which is the side in which you put a product in the market and you need to comply with rules. And in Europe, every European country has a set of rules, and generally, these rules come from the national transposition of an European law. So, just to simplify, this is what I do on the technical side. Of course, I love to share things I'm learning with you. I think knowledge is to be shared. There's such an amount of information today. It's so difficult to make sense of the environmental problems and environmental solutions. So in my content here, what I try to do is take an angle that generally involves a lot of water regulations, clean tech as well, and I tell you stories about it. I like to talk about drinking water directive or the urban wastewater treatment directive, and of course, when I am working with my clients, the tone changes and we get much more technical. But what I need here and what I'm trying to achieve with you is establishing a dialogue on things that are complicated and we need to make more sense of it together. So that's why I like to keep most of my free content very relaxed. So when you go to my newsletter here, the name is Regulatory Intelligence, and most of the posts will be about regulations. If you see a trend now that I am talking about is nature risk. So I have a course that you can access and even, I think this is still free. Yeah, I'm going to check that now. But I have two lessons about nature risk that you can read and you can start making sense of what is to consider nature as an ecosystem in which we evaluate risks. So this is very different from looking at regulations and compliance. When we have an industry in production site and you want to know, you're a big company and you want to know what is the risk my production system has in relation to that ecosystem, then the level changes completely. And that's why I started doing a course here that the 7 first days are free and you can read if that makes sense to you. And you can start understanding what is that companies need to know about nature risk, because I think who is not considering that right now has severe risks in terms of logistics and production and raw materials. If we ignore nature, we're really in trouble. And I don't know why people are not kind of getting that message yet. So I think companies which are really looking at nature risk are really ahead of the curve. Generally, I think people are more worried about water risk, which is fair because water you need for most industries, but there's more. There's flooding, there is fires, there is the weather changing. Agriculture is really sensitive to nature risks. So that's why have a look at the course, see what you think. The 7 first days are free, and then I will continue my lessons here. As I learn, I teach you as well, because I think this is the kind of knowledge that has to go around. So the regulatory intelligence newsletter, as you see, let me see who is there, because as I am in the phone, I can't see Epic. I speak effect. Hello there. Thank you for being with me here. So when you go at my new newsletter, you will see mostly regulations and comments on drinking water quality, wastewater quality in Europe. Why do I focus in Europe? Because I live here in Italy, and because European environmental regulations are very strict, and they basically set the scene for most of the things we see in the world in terms of new pollutants and what's going to be regulated, what's not, and we kind of see this cadence of it happens in Europe because Europe is very good in research and making law, and then you see the trend around the globe. The European markets are also very sensitive and they're very difficult to enter, and they're so fragmented in different countries and languages that makes a little bit of a maze. Because I'm here and because I love environmental regulations and science and bringing science to the real world, this is the focus of my consultancy work. So the other thing is, I have a PhD and I completed my PhD many years ago in 2013 in Ireland, and I'm originally from Brazil, so I kind of traveled a lot in Europe for work, for doing postdocs and for working in the industry. And I learned a lot of stuff in the way as regards how do you take science and scientific qualifications and you bring to the market. And that knowledge for me is so rich because I never found, when I needed that knowledge, it wasn't available to me. So the knowledge of talking to companies, the knowledge of simplifying scientific language, the knowledge of learning how you position yourself to make people listen to you. Because when we have scientific training, what happens very often, we tend to be a bit verbose and we talk too much and we don't listen enough. And companies where time is of the essence and money is the aim, because we look at industry and say, because the industry is bad. Industry is not bad at all. We need production systems to maintain the things we need today to live. So I don't see a problem with industry. The problem with industry is when industry ignores the risks in nature, ignores that an industry belongs to an ecosystem, so it has to respect it. That's where the problems are. And this is where I like to work, kind of making production and nature talk the same language. And of course, there are people behind, and these are the people taking the decisions, business people, and they need you to be objective. You need to speak what you know about the science and be brief. You don't need to tell a whole story. So that's why I didn't have that training when I did my PhD. And it took me a lot of time to learn how to speak to companies. And I share that knowledge with you here in a kind of branch of regulatory intelligence, which when you go to my page, you see newsletters. And just go under science and ROI, which means return of investment, and you see all the frameworks I use to talk to my clients. Some are underpaid, but if you can retrieve one article for free, or if you need it, just send me a message. There's no problem with that if you can't access that now. But go to Science and Return of Investment, or ROI, and have a look at the way I talk to companies, because that knowledge that is not taught anywhere for scientists is it's how we need to speak to companies so that they listen to us. Because believe me, companies want to know how to act, and they are, especially large companies that depend on water, which is basically all industries, they need information from science. And if you can speak that language and position yourself as somebody that's going to make the bridge, you're going to be hired, or you're going to be working with people, and you're going to have opportunities, but you need to learn to speak their language. And their language is not the one we write scientific papers. You need to be brief, you need to be objective, and you need to say what is the impact of that regulation in that market for that product. So this is what I do with my content, and that's what I teach here behind my regulatory content. So thank you very much for being with me today. This video was a little bit to explain what I do in Substack with my consultants' work under regulatory intelligence, and behind a little sister newsletter, which is called Science and Roy, where I teach how I talk to companies to you. Thank you very much, and I see you next time. Bye.